Are films a form of culture? Let's discuss. The word culture means the art and other manifestations of human intellectual achievement regarding collectively, or the ideas, customs and social behaviour of a particular people or society. Both definitions fit perfectly with the topic at hand, and here's why. Films have amassed insane fan bases in the past and still do, none more than superhero films like the Marvel and DC universes. Millions of people each year flood to cinemas to see the latest iteration of their favourite characters in their adventures. Over the past 10 years or so, Marvel has been releasing blockbuster films each year, solidifying them in history as some of the best and highest grossing films of all time. And while some people will say they're not cinema and they're just roller coasters on the screen, there's no denying the beauty behind them. Out of 22 films released, I'll be discussing Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which is one of the most underrated Marvel films in my opinion. Guardians 2 lives in the shadow of the first film, but there's so much beauty behind it that it's a shame to see people give it a pass when it comes to talking about the MCU. I loved the first film, I thought the soundtrack was incredible, comedic scenes were beautifully written and the casting was perfect. It told the story of a group of people realising there was so much more to the world than themselves and their greed. James Gunn did a phenomenal job with this film, and I do not think anyone could have created a film as great as this with the Guardians IP, other than Taika Waititi, who showed the world how great of a director he was years before dipping his toes into the MCU. Upon my initial viewing of Guardians 2, I loved it, but a few scenes stayed with me, the main two being when the Guardians first split up, with 3 of the 5 going to the Ego's planet, and when Quill fights Ego using his celestial form. On a casual viewing, these scenes would not hold as much value to them and would just be like any other part of the film. But through an active viewing, these scenes speak many words just by using one song, The Chain by Fleetwood Mac. Everyone knows how magical the sound of Fleetwood Mac is, but the use of this song in these two scenes sets the mood to the entire film, and to understand why, you first need to listen to the lyrics of the song and understand the mindset of the band. The album Rumours was written at a time when the band were drifting away from their loved ones, and for 4 of the 5 members, that was each other. Christine and John McVie were going through a messy divorce and would only speak to each other in the studio, while Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham were in a cycle of being together and splitting up. And Mick Fleetwood was going through a divorce of his own with his then wife Jenny Boyd. This situation had the band fall on hard times, with most of them turn into cocaine addiction due to stress of both their personal and professional lives, due to being hounded by the media regarding the release of a new album. The writing credits show a contribution from all 5 band members, conveying the toxicity amongst them, as each one of them are aiming what they're writing at each other. Through this, a parallel is shown through the 5 Guardians all having issues with each other. Quill and Rocket both drifting apart after Rocket steals from the Sovereign, almost getting the group killed. Gamora and Peter have the differences after Peter flirts with the High Priestess and does not listen to the regarding Ego. Drax isolates himself from everyone after meeting Mantis to learn about her and the planet. The Chain is played twice in this film, and both times it's played it portrays either the divide or unity of the Guardians. The scene in which the Guardians split up, we see Rocket repairing the ship after the argument with Quill, and we see everyone apart from Rocket and group leave, and the Chain is played over the top. The lyrics, "If you don't love me now, then you'll never love me again," hold connotations of the dying relationship of the Guardians. It's almost as if they're saying this to each other, reaching out and saying, "This could be our last adventure together if you don't realise we need to be part of something bigger and better than ourselves." The division between the 2 subgroups in the Guardians is quintessential to the song carrying the weight bestowed upon it, as we are shown more than just the Guardians splitting up, but Gunn shows us the emotions that the characters are portraying. Mainly Will and Rocket are these are the 2 with the most to lose. After boarding Ego's ship, we see Quill looking at a picture of David Hasselhoff, who we learn earlier is Peter's role model and father figure, showing us how he is both doubtful and anxious regarding Ego's claims of being his father. Quill is his guard up when Ego tells him that he is his father, and over time gradually lets it down and becomes consumed by the power Ego promises. Quill is a man who has lost everything. He has lost his mother, his blood family. He has always felt incomplete as a result of his abduction. Everything and everyone Peter knew was taken away from him in an instant, and he had to learn a new life living in fear of the Ravengers eating him and beating him to the point where he only had himself. Rocket, on the other hand, is shown to be conveying a passive-aggressive attitude towards Quill and the others, as he feels unappreciated and that he must prove himself worthy to the others, showing he is valuable to the team. Rocket taking the batteries was about wanting to be acknowledged. In regards to what he has to lose, it's the same as Quill, a family, something he's never experienced before. All he's ever known is experiments and neglect. His character is complex. He's not just two-dimensional, but has multiple layers to him in regards to how he acts due to his emotions and self-doubt. On the surface, he's confident and doesn't care about anything other than wealth and Groot, but digging just a little deeper, we learn everything he does is fueled by never feeling good enough, as he's riddled with anxiety.
Alright, no one's laughing at you.
He thinks I'm some stupid thing he does. Well, I didn't ask to get made. I didn't ask to be torn apart and put back together over and over, turned into some little monster.
Rocket, no one's calling you a monster.
He called me vermin.
The neglect towards him in his past life left him alone with Groot and no one else until the rest of the Guardians came together to fight. He finally feels united with people on a personal level to the point where he can call them his family. Even trusting them takes time. He's a guarded person as he doesn't know people's intentions until he's met them. The second time that the chain is played, it's in Peter's face-off with Ego. We see everything Peter loves slowly being killed by the person whom he had confided in, and they took advantage of him when he was at his most vulnerable. Peter knows what Ego's end goal is, as he's seen a first-hand example of what he does to achieve his goal with no empathy. He is a monster who has to rebuild his human form. It's almost like he's trying to mock Peter for being so naive whilst he's being drained of his life and power just to be used as a battery. After realising what power he harnesses, Peter takes control to defeat Ego by using the one thing Ego lacks: emotions. Peter uses all of this sorrow and anger he has felt in his life, like the loss of his mother and the lack of a childhood, and now the threat of losing everything he has worked so hard to achieve and maintain. From the moment that Peter begins to control his celestial powers, we hear the opening of Lindsay Buckingham's riff slowly fade into the scene. As the song progresses, we see Peter slowly getting stronger, making the ground pulse and the rubble form around his body, conveying a lack of vulnerability in his character, juxtaposed to earlier in the film where he allows Ego to indoctrinate him. The lyrics of the song begin as Peter throws himself at Ego, after stating that he shouldn't have killed his mother and squashed his Walkman, once again stating, "If you don't love me now, then you'll never love me again," juxtaposed to before. This is not aimed at any of the Guardians, but instead at Ego from Quill's perspective. Both we as the audience and the Guardians know that Ego is just using Peter to fuel his power, showing how he never really cared for or loved Peter. He even mocks him minutes before for wanting a father figure that he could rely on, taking the form of David Hasselhoff. Hasselhoff was a role model and a father figure to Peter, despite the fact he never met him, which is ironic as his real father attempts to slowly kill and torture him whilst he watches his friends slowly suffocate around him. This shows the inhumanity of Ego, as he lacks any empathy and care for the life other than his own, which is juxtaposed to Quill, whose humanity is explicit and shown in any possible moment in both films. Quill gives up the thing he wants most for this humanity, a connection with his biological father. We are shown a montage of everything and everyone he loves, which gives him the power to fight back against Ego, as he does not want to die for nothing, but instead needs a purpose. Like the first film, where he and the other Guardians hold the Infinity Stone to save Xandar. Whilst Peter's life is being drained away from him, we see the planet being corrupted by Ego, destroying everything that it touches. A soundtrack can make or break a film, even in a superhero film. Try watching this scene with different songs and you will see what I mean. Both music and film are massive parts of culture, as both are forms of media, and amass huge amounts of followers and fans that make them explode in popularity. As previously stated, culture is the art and other manifestations of human intellectual achievements regarded collectively, or the ideas, customs and social behaviour of a particular people or society. And both music and film are just that. art? To end this analysis, I would like to answer the question I asked before. So yes, films are a form of culture and a form of art. I hope you agree.